Hey, I'm Mark Ronson, and we're here on the taking some pictures for the NME. We're in a photo studio. I'm not quite sure. Where are we? Holborn. We're in Old Street. It's where the cool kids live, apparently. So we're taking some pictures. On my new album Record Collection, there's a lot of collaborations, and I've got some really interesting, like, up-and-coming people, from Rose Dougal and MNDR to people that kind of know Kyle Spank Rock, and then there's people like Boy George, who are obviously very well known. But there's no real logic to it. It just always happens quite randomly, and you meet someone, you say, hey, come over to the studio, I'll play you a track, and then they like it, they write a song, and that's how most of the people ended up on the album. Most of the songs on the album, the music tracks, we came up with in the initial week of recording. Basically, I took some of my favorite musicians in the world, and we all set up in this studio in Brooklyn called Dunham, and we played and we recorded the best. We just kind of improvised and wrote with the tape running the whole time, and we took our favorite parts and started to mold them into tracks. Then the next phase was bringing in some people to write on those, on top of those tracks. So people like Jonathan from the drums, and Jake from the Scissor Sisters, Kathy Dennis, Andrew Wyatt, a good friend of mine in this band, Mike Snow. And they just started writing, and some of the songs were good and some of them were shit, and we just kept working on it until we thought we had songs that were good enough for the track. The reason there's not that much brass on this record, there isn't any brass actually, is because I didn't really know anything about what I was going to do on this album, except that I knew that there would be no horns and no covers. Because I think, you know, when I made Version, I didn't really have a grand plot, and I wasn't even signed, and Lily and Amy and all the artists I was working with, they hadn't come out, they weren't big yet. But then Version kind of blew up, and I guess it kind of became a bit of a running joke. It was like, oh, here comes Ronson and his merry band of trumpeters or trombonists, or pick an instrument. And it's cool. Like, I think there's really amazing, talented musicians, people like Tom York and TV on the Radio, that every time they do a new record, they come up with this amazing new, reinventing the wheel of sonics. And I think I needed a little bit of like a kick in the ass probably to do that. So I think it was kind of good that there was a little bit of a healthy backlash towards the sound of Version, because it made me, kind of challenged me to do something new. I think both of those records, Version and Here Comes the Fuzz, were quite fun. They were light and they were fun. And this record probably has a little bit more depth and emotion to it, which is good, because, you know, I'm a DJ, I come from DJ culture. I'm always thinking about how people are going to move to it when I play it out, but at the end of the day, you also want something that got people walking away from the record having felt something a little bit. I think especially with the Boy George song, Somebody to Love Me, that's probably like one of the deeper things I've ever done, which isn't saying much, because it's set the bar pretty low, but you know what I mean. We just started rehearsing this week actually, and it's really cool. It's got a good band, and it's quite different, because it's like 5 people playing synths, sometimes 4, and then a drummer and a bass player. It's almost like I wanted it to feel like a little bit like somewhere in between James Brown and Kraftwerk. Like, the rhythm section is really grooving, and the synths are really thick and layered and interesting. And Rose and MNDR and Alex Greenwald and quite a few of the singers, Spank Rock and Kyle, are coming with us to do the first few shows, and then we have to figure it out from there. It's obviously quite difficult with our shows because it relies on a lot of the vocalists being around, but we'll kind of figure it out. I've been working on a new album with Duran Duran for the past year, which heavily influenced the sound of my record, because I started that before Record Collection, and learning about all the analog synths from Nick Rhodes from Duran Duran really like helped me find the sound. Other than that, I don't think so. I think that's it. I've just really been working on this for the most part.